Refresh the page, make sure we're live. And we're live. Welcome to UGEARS Hurdy-Gurdy Assembly Part 3. Now a little bit earlier so that I can hopefully get to bed at a decent time tonight. Last night we got the base on, we did this cool planetary gear setup. Pull up OBS so I could see myself. Spins quite freely, quite nicely. Still just a little bit of wobble in the flywheel there. Said I was going to start by sanding the flywheel. Before I do that, I want to kind of see if I can line it up. By doing that, I'm just going to put my finger here on the frame, just touching the flywheel and looking for low spots and high spots. Right about here is my high spot. Move that to the top. And look for a spoke that's in the middle. Rotate 180 degrees. And that is actually my low spot at the top now. Looking at this, can't actually push that up anymore. So we'll go here, make sure that's still my low spot. Find my high spot again. And instead of trying to push the low spot this way, I'll try to push the high spot that way just a touch. So it ends there and there. There, I believe. We take our fingers and just kind of move them up. There's my high spot. This needs to just get pushed back just a hair. See if it... And that's actually straight now. Spins with virtually no wobble. Just a little bit of coaxing. And we'll just spin it by hand with some sandpaper on top. If you haven't seen parts 1 or 2, well, really I only use this in 1. This is just a pad off of the base of a random orbit sander with a block of wood screwed on the back. And it's, you know, just a worn out pad, but it provides a good flat surface. This 320 grit might not be good enough though. I might need to be using something a little bit more aggressive. We just hold it straight and rotate the piece against it. If I wanted to have some gross overkill on it, I could try to chuck it up in a drill or something, but why bother? Yeah, you can actually see it's taken some of this scorching off. But let's get some more aggressive sandpaper. I'm not here all night doing that. That was some 320. I use a lot of 320. 600 wouldn't work either. 80 is going to be too rough. This feels like 120. Oh, that's some 220. We'll start with some 120, move to some 220 before hitting 320. Make sure I'm holding it flat. You know, if I were a smart man, I would mark this wheel with a pencil so that I could see when I've gone 180 degrees, and I want this somewhere where I can sand this little mark off. So all I did was I made a mark right here on the wheel, just a tiny, yeah, little mark right there. You could see it right at the apex there. So that I kind of try to sand this wheel uniformly. So I start at the top mark and end at the top mark. TDC, top dead center. I already have a viewer. See who we have. Ah, it's just me right now. Okay. Well, that's fine. Well, a lot of people watch this video after the fact. Thanks for watching live, after the fact, whatever. Figure if I'm going to be doing this anyway, let some people get some enjoyment out of it. I'm going to just pass TDC on that. So, there. Still have a little bit of a crown on this. Not sure how vital it is that this is completely smooth, but never hurts. Feel that going. Yeah, it's going down quite nicely. But you can see, hey, we got a no viewer. Oh, hey, how is it, Mr. Hoff? You look at the scorch marks from the laser cut on here. You can see where the sandpaper's taken some of it off right there. It's still pretty much there because that side's flat. We're just taking the high spots off of this wheel right now. Go back to TDC, top dead center. Let it walk across the table on me. That's fine. I'm basically just going to do this for another minute or two. Get the bulk of it down till my fingers hurt, whichever comes first. Here's my TDC. Still have a bit of a high spot there. Took quite a bit off. Yeah, that'll work. Grab a bench brush. Just get some sawdust off. Break out the air compressor after the fact and just blow it out. So, yesterday we left off putting this bottom piece on. Which is just these two amazing steps here. And not quite sure what this is, but I'm sure we'll figure it out in due course. But we'll start with these next pieces. That's off of plate 7. Not many pieces left on here. 2, 1, 3, 6, 8, 5. Okay, so this is 7. Yeah. Right out in front of me. Put the pencil over. And I need part 33 and 2 of 34. 33 and 2 of 34. That's this right here, this, I don't know what you'd call that. Deformed elephant shape. And then 34 is these two here. Cut the tabs from the back. Yeah, thanks for the affirmation that my odd description is accurate. See if that'll pop it out. This last tab. This piece is cut with really, perhaps rhino. Yeah, I could see that. Kind of has a horn on the front. And then my 234s. It's only 81 in the garage tonight. Yeehaw. I'll call it a step up since it was ridiculously hot and humid today. Put that off to the side. We orient it like this. And these are they're kind of cross-shaped. Now, if I can flip it so you can see. With a little short stubby end, a long skinny end that has that little divider in it. Focus for just a split second. Why can't you focus correctly? Short stubby end goes in these round holes, so I guess these pieces rotate somehow. And then alright, so then we have these cams, part 35. They're little paisley looking dealy bobs. I'm betting they're adjustment cams of some type. If you don't know what a cam is, I actually use them on my CNC. Do I have any that aren't actively attached? I use these on my CNC where I'll put stuff on here, you know, flat stock plywood, MDF, plexiglass, what have you. And I can actually use a more traditional clamp to hold it down. But if I want to just clamp it from the edge, I'll drop the screw in a hole, tighten it down, and rotate it around these offset holes that we have in it, and it will provide a clamping action because as you rotate it around, it applies more pressure as you rotate. Really ingenious design. The clamps, I actually, it's one of the first things I cut on the CNC because, I mean, I needed to hold other material down, so. See people use hot glue, double stick tape, all kinds of fun things. I don't really like putting things on the CNC bed, as it were, or wasteboard, that's going to ruin the wasteboard prematurely. I've actually been really good about not cutting into the wasteboard. I'll usually take some hardboard or masonite if you prefer. Some of this stuff and lay it down underneath my workpiece, and I'll cut into this because this stuff's very dimensionally stable across the length. You can actually see on this piece here, what was I cutting with this? I think this was partly a bow, and I was also using it for some lighting cookies. And a lighting cookie is a thing that you basically, it has a pattern on it, and then behind it you place a light and it'll project that pattern onto a wall or some other surface. Used it a few years back when I was doing a sound job for a friend downtown where we had Mixmaster Mike in town. Nice guy, Mike. Says these little tiny cams. You can see as I rotate around, it gets larger, kind of like a conch shell. Says you need to sand them. We'll start by focusing on the little tabs. There's the AC kicking on. Yeah, it's not being picked up on the mic. Had someone suggest getting a pop filter for the mic. Very true. And they make one for this mic. Out of stock everywhere. It's a whopping $3. So, can't be too terribly effective. So, just like before, you rotate around the piece as you sand so you don't develop flat spots. And just work your way around the piece, around the outside of this cam. It's one. Bug. I'm gonna sit down. Yeah, I'm over exaggerating so you can see what I'm doing. A few more swipes on this. And now just a sanding pass to make sure you get all of the surface. Mr. Hoff, Nuggets has 2 Gs. Uh, Nougats of information are a little bit different. You've been in the development world a little too long. You know, there are people that, or there's a dedicated Twitch channel that just streams old Bob Ross episodes. It's pretty great. And then you wax the outside of the cams. I almost took the whole thing apart for this stream and to wax, put some paste wax on all the parts, but I decided against it. Let's see how it sounds, because waxing all the parts will change how the instrument sounds. Kind of like a guitar, if you strip the paint off of it, it might not sound very good at all. And these just fit down over the wide portion of these shafts. Then we take part number 36. Which is this morbidly mutated elephant with a couple seahorse looking deals on it. I'm here to educate you. If I can get at least a couple little nuggets of knowledge to people, regardless of whether they use it or not, I'll consider these streams a success. Because I could probably have this done a bit faster without streaming. Is that all the tabs? Yeah. There we go. Nifty little piece. And oh yeah, it's just saying make sure that you put the little embellishment on the outside. Yeah. And let's see if we get this to come across on camera. So I'll rotate one of these cams. You can see there in the middle, it's coming up, and then it'll reach the end of the cam. Right there. It'll start over. This has to be for some form of adjustment. It's a little too frilly for Space Invaders. Okay, next page. Boy, there's a lot of the panels are going to be used on this one. 5 different panels, and I think there's only 8, maybe 9. Can't remember. 8 panels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But as you can see, we're going to place the top on. But it looks like we're going to be putting together a few more of pieces to this first. So part number 37, which is on panel 8. Which we haven't taken a single piece out of yet. It's a full brand new virgin piece. These pieces are awful thin. Do my best not to break them. I might actually break a chisel out and split some of this. Just so I split the master panel instead of splitting these tiny little pieces. I'll show you what I mean in just a second. Is that all of them? Oh, it slid out nicely. Relatively. But this has a little curly Q here. And on the master page, or on the card, you can see right here, is the tiniest little piece of wood in there. Oh, the ice pick? The Jimmy DiResta ice pick. You've seen this. It's very pointy. It's great for all kinds of little things. I might actually use it to secure this wheel in place. There's actually a little retaining washer here that doesn't really stay in place. Don't know if you can see that on camera. Not really. But there's a lot of little wiggle and play in this whole mechanism. It's kind of needed to make sure it stays aligned properly. But I'd like it if that retaining washer actually stayed in place and did its job. But I could use the ice pick and actually start a little hole here and drive a tiny pin in place. You know, a little 23 gauge pin nail or something. And it'll hold it right there. So back to taking out the other part 37. I actually need to clean this thing up. I might do that on stream too. It's, you know, it's brass, but it's untreated, unsealed brass, so it tarnishes pretty easy. And I mean, that takes just a minute or two to shine that up with the right stuff. Okay. Is that all of them? Until. Pretty lucky on that. Didn't chop it up too bad with the knife or anything. So with this piece here, we've got what I'll call the frilly side and the plain side. or seahorses and rhino. And then these have a frilly side and a plain side. And interestingly, the frilly side goes to the plain side, and it actually just kind of snaps in place. Not bad at all. You can actually look at this and see it has little teeth on there that latch into these holes. I actually get it lined up. Another cool thing is that it's got a middle section here that maintains the spacing of these two pieces so they don't get clamped too tight. Now I need two pieces of 38, which are on panel 7. Okay, and this is on a carrier board. Flip it over, easier to find the tabs. Rather impressed with my internet. It's handling 2 people streaming at once just fine. And it's actually the basic stuff. And these are kind of like the spaceships from Space Invaders. Yeah, the grooves are insanely tiny. You can actually, I mean, this is your standard hobby knife where you can barely see it. And most of these grooves are thicker or smaller than this blade, so it actually mars the wood a bit, cutting them out. But that's laser cut stuff for you. But since its cutting width is so tiny, you actually get some really accurate cuts. I wouldn't mind getting a decent laser at some point if I have room for it and money, which will never happen. So, yeah, these things very much spaceship looking. And these go with the little nibbles sticking out. And just as on the bottom we had a little divider there to keep spacing, this goes on top and maintains spacing as well. Wonder if this is a string tension or something. As you can actually see on the cam, it goes, you know, it has these little divots in the back you can see the cam through. Well, if I can get the light to adjust. Yeah. But then on the other side you have these notches, one here and one here. So I'm betting this is like a string tension adjustment or something. It is a stringed instrument after all. Hey, I'm up to 3 viewers. Who else do we have in here? Ah, Commander Root, our friendly neighborhood bot. I'm actually going to turn AC down a little because I'm still getting hot in here. Alright, now we have 39, which looks like just some retention washers. 39 is on number 7 as well. Oh, interesting. So I thought this would be kind of like this piece here, where it's perfectly round on the outside but has a cutout in the middle. But these are a little different. These actually have a little, well, come on, focus. They have a little wavy pattern around the outside, which means they probably will engage with something to kind of hold in place. Break off the carrier board. And no, it's responsible for the hurdying. Clearly. This one I've got to be a little careful with because I don't want to mess up these little ridges too much. Is that good enough? Please be good enough. Yeah, it's good enough. And those just go over these shafts. I guess just to kind of retain them. Or do, oh no, they just stick on the end. So I wonder if they engage in a gear or something. Man, these things fit tight. They stick out a bit. I guess they're treating that as knurling just to make it easier to turn. That's my guess. So these are little cam adjusters. If I flip this around, see if I can get the, yeah, you can see the cam there. And we set this aside. Now we find the piece with the top on it, which should be part number 4 or panel 4. And we pull out part number 31. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the whole instrument. Lots of little detail on it. Not the most complex part, but it's large, so it's easy to work with. And it does look relatively nice. And since it has big arcing straight or lines, really easy to find the tabs and cut them. If I can get the knife out of the groove. As always, remember, cut with the knife where it's going away from the grain, not into the grain, so if the knife does cut down, you don't cut into your piece. And of course this has a little carrier board in the middle. You can actually see that's part 86. Looks like 5 of them. I've got to cut that out. Don't think this tree was too happy to be Bob Ross' stream. He's always talking about his happy little trees. Yeah, this tree's dead. We get that. We get 2 part number 3s, which are the 15 million of this little guy. Cut him out. So glad these are on a carrier board and not stuck and tied to a huge piece of wood. These tiny pieces are rather rough on the hands if you have to deal with a big board as well. Take these scraps, toss them over here. At some point I ought to pick up that side of the table. So these little pieces, okay. Tons of little alignment holes and stuff in here. These pieces go through that hole and that hole. And they're used to hold a little fascia piece on. Hold it up while I set it down, and then we take the fascia piece out of part number 1. Eight, 3, 2, 1. And it's this little devil horns piece that goes around the bottom. Eh. Kind of curious as to the history of the hurdy-gurdy. I mean, it's not the most audibly pleasing instrument in the world, but it's supposed to be pretty easy to play, kind of like an auto harp. And, you know, I see them associated with pirates a lot. They couldn't miss the branding on this. Oh well. Make sure the branding goes up, no sanding, no waxing. Oh boy. This'll be fun. 'Cause those little pins go through these holes up here. But as you can see, that wood is super thin. So we're gonna have to be a little ginger with this. I might do one side and then the other. Or even better, flip it over. Line it up a bit. Yeah. And then push it through. And get it started. So that I don't split those tiny little pieces. Working with thin pieces, working with wood in general, a lot of the times when you're working with anything thin, it's about giving it the right support while you're working with it. I am not a fan of how thin that is, but thankfully, I don't have to glue anything because it held together. Alright, and let's see what we have for the next step. Ah, okay. So this, okay, this is the bridge. So it is kind of like a height adjustment. This actually will go right here in the top, like so. Then you can use this for some adjustment back here with the cams. Then I have to get 2 pieces of 40, which, boy, these are cool looking in the thing. I think the way they've done it is they've put 2 side by side and opposed them. Interesting. So the earliest forms of the hurdy-gurdy were so large they had to be played by 2 people. I guess since it's a mechanical instrument, that makes sense, because getting mechanical stuff small in the olden times would have been tough. Yeah, this is a really interesting layout of these for 40. The little ram horn ones above, part number, I guess 110, are pretty nifty too. I guess it just depends upon where in the instrument the piece is, how much adornment they gave it. So I just need 2 of these. Yeah, or 4 of them, I guess. And the laser cut on this was so good. See if I can hold it well. Came out like this. When they fell out of the thing, they just fell apart. So according to this, I need 4 of them. It says wax them, but this is a friction fit part. The wax is just to make the insertion a little easier. Yeah, I mean, you can see here, I just cut these 2 out. They're in place, and I just pop it out. You can see it's 2 pieces, but they're cut so precisely. And these are kind of neat because where did those needle nose pliers go? Get my fingers out of the picture on this. They actually have a little tooth up here, and you slide it into a hole, and this will compress and spring back up to hold it in place. But we'll do this from the back. This from the back. And these are just used basically as wedges to secure the whole thing. Make sure this bridge doesn't come out of the top. And that's tight. I could see why they wanted to wax them. Then this has new pictogram on it, new iconography that I haven't seen before. It's these 2 little boards with arrows pointing inward. Let's look at the legend, see if that's actually in the legend. Press the parts as far as they will go. Do not fully press outer parts. Okay. This is just saying, make sure they're snug. I think I have that covered. And flip it back over, and this step is complete. And this next page is making use of a tool here that I haven't used yet. It's kind of neat that they include all the tools you need to do this. And all this is, right here, is a real skinny piece of wood to help you push things out of their little recesses or their little holes in the carrier boards. So we'll go ahead, pop it out, and use it now that they're telling us we should. Interestingly, it has their branding, but it also has these 3 holes on it. Not sure what those are for. Maybe they're just for show. Maybe they're for actual use. So pages or panels 2 and 4. There's 1. There's 4. There's 2. 2's looking a little thin right now. Of course, 4's not doing a whole lot better. So on panel 2, we've got another piece that's kind of similar to what we had on the orbital gear set. But I don't think we have another orbital gear set in here. I just don't see enough gears laying around on the panels to make another. And then of course we have this fancy piece here. And we've got part number 43, which is miniature dog bones. Just retention pins, kind of like what they have in the mallet head. So I'm going to start off by taking these miniature dog bones carrier board just out of the main piece, just to get it a little bit easier to use. Or easier to work with, I should say. And I need 4 of those. There's 5 in total. I wonder if it's a spare or if they are using all 5. I would not be surprised if it's a spare for as tiny as it is. Because yeah, it's tiny. Easily misplaced. Of course, they say use this fancy tool to do it. Problem with the fancy tool is you have to be able to push it through. And they show laying it down on tabletop and pushing it through. Well, that doesn't work. But if you put it straddling a gap, it'll work quite decently. Not bad at all. We've got 4 of those, and then we've got to cut out this piece. Oh boy. Kind of lucked out here. See on that gear, there's a knot in in the veneer of the plywood. And none of the pieces are on that. I mean, it's a veneer. I mean, we're talking... Oh, thanks, Josh. I mean, it's a veneer, so it's half a millimeter thick, quarter millimeter thick, but still would make that veneer a lot more likely to fail and start peeling off on its own. Just 4 tabs on this piece. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. There's that piece out. I should really move some of these out of the way so that my area is a little bit cleaner. Don't worry, no one's working on anything off camera. And interesting, okay. I'll cut this piece out. I really got to figure out how to keep this headset from turning off. Oh, 2 more tabs. At least it gives me an audio indication when it does it. And 54 and 55, which are both on this piece. Okay, so 54 is this long asymmetrical arched piece, and then there's 2 55s that have these little teeth on them. Now it says I only need 1 of 55, so I'm only going to cut 1 out. Good lord, these gaps are getting tinier every time. I bet you it's the humidity today. Not everyone realizes that wood really, unsealed wood I should say, really expands and contracts based on just the ambient humidity in the air. So much so that when you see like a kitchen table, you'll rarely see the kitchen table firmly bolted to its base. You'll actually see it like with little angle plates that have grooves that it can slide in. And what'll happen is the lumber will move. And if they firmly affixed it, it would either strip out the screws or crack the boards. That happens a lot with cutting boards, end grain cutting boards, or any wood cutting boards. If you soak them in water, you'll see they'll warp or crack or something. And they will not be long for this world. This says, take these. Hooray, another really thin piece of wood there to worry about. On this piece too. Thankfully it's not about that. Or thankfully it's not compressing that way. Compressing the other way. Yeah, this little wooden hammer works nice for these tiny, tiny delicate pieces. Line it up straight. Line it up straight. Get it flush with the bottom. Then we take this fun, I don't know what it is. It's like a derpy snail head. Doesn't say which end these need to stick out on, so see if I can get them to stick out somewhat even across both sides, but these pieces just sandwich together. Yes, Derpy Snailhead, great band name. Then, okay, this asymmetric piece, it says, I hold it like this, tooth goes away from me. Just fits together, then, oh, okay. So I'm guessing that this has it aligned like this, and this hole here is a circle, so that this can rotate up and down for whatever purpose. And on to the next page. Every time I flip a page, I see this page coming up. That's when it's really going to take form. But we're not there. I've been streaming an hour. Nice. This one will have a bit more gear work. I put the other 55 piece on. Shows me some areas I need to wax. That'll be fun. So break out this piece. Grab the number 55. That's the only piece from here I need to worry about. Guess you could call this like a little penguin or duck or something. Yeah, that'll work nicely. But I have to get it on all three at the same time. And now we are complete. And over here on panel 3, that's 4. Panel 3, we're going to take 2 of 3 of this part 56. And, oh, I just got a text message. I will be right back. And I am back. Switching back to external camera. And yeah, other half's inside streaming. She played with her Twitch dashboard layout and her chat window went away. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to get that back for her. But she's actively streaming, so it's a little hard to do that. So I'll play with that later. Pop a couple of these out. These are little figure 8 looking guys. And the whole point is on this guy you have these two little pieces and it just retains the little duckbills in place. That is on there quite tightly. At least these are easy to get in place. Yeah, that works. So apparently these will be more bushings in this hole and this hole, so we need to wax those. I find my wax. Rub it in there a little. Yeah, good enough. I mean, this is just, honestly, it looks just like this stuff. Just a little bit thicker and harder. This is paste wax. I use this on picture frames and all that. Furniture. Not on my cars though. I mean, it's honestly, they're about the same color and everything. This just is a little bit softer, a little bit more oily. So we've got that waxed. And now we get to work on a gear assembly. The bottom half of this page have a little cross axle and then two gears, two bushings that go on the end. That's on panels 2 and 3. Oh, there's 3. It's going to be, yeah, this nifty looking gear up here. It's kind of a nice touch that they add these little crescents in there, because honestly I'm not even sure if that gear will be seen very much. Whereas we'll also have this big gear right here. No embellishment on that one. That is 46, so we'll cut 46 out just because I'm looking at it. And yeah, these gears will need waxed. Because it's saying this big gear I don't necessarily need to wax, but having me wax all kind of stuff that honestly doesn't need it. I would think a gear is one of the things that would need it the most. And since the tabs are in the gears themselves, I'm just going to take the hobby knife, smooth the gullets between the gear teeth. Parts 44 and 45 will be next. Those are the axle pieces. Ugh. That's not too bad. Again, make sure these gullets are cleared. I don't think the gears even engage that deep, but better safe than sorry. Like I said, I only want to build this thing once if I can. 45 and 46 are also on this piece. Or 44 and 45, sorry. These little vase-shaped pieces. And they just kind of fit together opposingly to become a cross-shaped axle, plus-shaped axle, whatever you want to call it. You know, real fine tips on this. You know, and on the other side, well, you can kind of see it. They've got some more of those relief cuts in there. Super thin. The other piece is pretty much the same. Why did they even label them differently? They look identical in every way. Oh well. And they just fit together like so. And these little notches here let the teeth engage so that they actually fit together. Just have to work them a bit so that it'll fit. Try a little persuasion. Yeah, just need a little help. Now it's like a wooden pill. It's pretty symmetrical too. But I don't think it actually matters which end these gears go on. Go ahead, wax the teeth. Get it over with. Yeah. Tip of this is very pointy now from waxing gear teeth. Go ahead, wax this one. This is the one it says to wax, but I figure wax them both. Of all the things to wax, you'd think the gears would be the most important, so. There's no pretty side or ugly side to this, so we just kind of fit it together. And we get 2 gears of 2 different sizes on an axle. That'll be a nice reduction, or what's the opposite of a reduction in gearing? I guess multiplier. And then we will also have these 2 bushings, 47. They're just your standard affair, round with a plus in the middle. And they say to sand it. So, guess what we're gonna do? Gonna sand it. That one just fell out. This one took a little coaxing. And yeah, since these are bushings, I am gonna sand it. As always, start with where the tabs were, get that relatively smooth. Then sand all the way around. So exciting. One. So exciting. Ah. Well, thankfully, it's really easy to tell where I haven't sanded because there's actually some stepping artifacts on this piece. And if you don't know what that is, basically, like things like the CNC and most laser cutters, they don't operate off of a motor that you would typically think of. They actually will operate off of stepper motors. And it's basically a 2-phase, 3-phase, whatever, multi-phase motor that is used to very precisely control these fit snug where they are positionally. And each step is a very accurate measurement. You know, if you have a gear like this, step could be, you know, 1 tooth, or it could be a fraction of a tooth. And if you can turn a gear very, very accurately, you know, whether it's riding in a track going back and forth or driving a belt, you have very, very accurate control of motion with the stepper motor. The downside is with a smooth DC motor or AC motor, you know, it's a smooth, constant motion using basically flywheel action with inertia or momentum. I always forget. I guess it would be momentum carrying it smoothly. But a stepper motor will work in tiny little jerking motions. And they do what's called micro-stepping, where you can actually move a fraction of a step to simulate, you know, that smooth motion, but you never totally eliminate it. And if you start moving or increasing your speed of movement, you don't have as fluid control. And you end up with basically jaggies. You know, if you've ever seen a modern game at high resolution versus an old game, an 8-bit or 16-bit game, you could see the actual pixels and it's all very jagged. And interesting, okay. So it does have me waxing this gear. And I mean, that's the same thing you get with stepper motor artifacts. Is you get uh, basically little jagged cuts. The next step did actually have me wax this gear that I already waxed. It also said to wax the face of the gear, which will make sense because this gear that I just waxed will go here and actively rub up against this piece of wood. So, I mean, you're using wax to reduce friction. Yeah, and the more I work this, smoother it becomes. Of course, it tells me to wax this gear yet again. Who knows? So, here's where it told me to wax that face and the little bushing. Also says that I should wax the bushing on the other side. Would have made sense to do that before it went on, but who am I to judge? Now I need parts 49 and 50, which are on panel 6. There's panel 6. Not a lot missing from this. You can actually see, I believe these are neck pieces right here. But 49 and 50, yeah, they're another cross axle. Oh, hey, part 51, which is removed from the, what is it, the orbital gear from the orbital system. So let's see here. 49.50. These two here. So we'll go ahead and cut those out. Ooh, that flexed quite a bit. And these are most certainly asymmetrical. Oh, there's another tab. But these two pieces together fit together like all the other axles. And make a very cone-shaped axle. Then I've got to free this gear, which a certain someone that was watching my streams kind of cringed at the comment of saying I was going to take the scrap piece into work and throw it at someone, thinking I was going to throw it at him. Won't mention any names. I wasn't originally targeting him, but if he's listening, I might have adjusted the target. Simply because he said something. But I'll take it into work, let him see it, because he's been watching the streams. Might even let him touch it. I didn't know if you were still actively watching or not. So this actually says I need to wax a whole lot of pieces. Take a look here. Okay, so the next couple steps are mostly just assembly. So I could do this step or these steps, and probably the next page or two get a good chunk taken care of. Before I put this on, I'm going to go ahead and wax it simply because it's easier to. Reach everything. Ah, both of you are paying attention. Good job. Of course, this also looks like it's saying I need to wax the face, so why not go ahead and just do that? And shove the axle or the gear onto the axle. Go away, little bug. Then I have another gear on an axle. Fascinating. Of course, this says I have 3 bushings, 52M, which are all on board too. Interesting. These over here, and that little tiny dot you see on each one is actually super tiny laser engraved letter M. Works for me. A lot of bushings in here. Makes sense because since it's all wood, you can't exactly use ball bearings. But the basic idea is the same. You have oil-light bushings, just wax bushings, then bronze bushings that have no oil or anything. And it's pretty nifty. So before we had the invention of the ball bearing, we still had to, you know, have rotational shafts that are held in place somewhere, and we would use bushings for that. And I'm trying to think. Good example would be, well, bandsaw wouldn't be a bad example, but I mean, it basically is a perfectly machined matching fit of a shaft and whatever is holding it, that you would have like a bronze bushing, which is low coefficient of friction, and it would be more or less a wear part, but it would be low coefficient of friction, so it wouldn't wear too rapidly. Trying to think. My bandsaw uses guide blocks instead of ball bearing guides. That's kind of like a bushing, but not quite the same purpose. Bushings are used a lot on like linear rails and stuff. Of course, I'm starting to see a lot of ball bearings on linear rails as well. Ball bearings are nice. It reduces your coefficient of friction a lot, but it also introduces a lot more room for them to mess up machining parts. Yeah, that'll work. And one more. Of course, it says I also need to wax these bushings. Shocking, I know. Of course, they're having you sand with 240 grit, which is pretty fine for most people. I mean, I'm using a 320 pad, so I'm getting it a lot smoother than they anticipate. Probably doesn't hold as much wax, but that's fine because the part itself is smoother to begin with. And wax as a bearing surface kind of wears thin as it heats up and stuff, so not a huge fan of that. These are a snug fit, to say the least. A very snug fit. Hmm. Mayhaps a bit too snug. What can I use to press this? Because they are not all the way on the shaft. Forgive me for going off camera. I am looking for something that is thin and strong enough to actually hit. Yeah, this dowel should be good. Try the wooden hammer first. Yeah, that works a lot better. All I'm doing is these bushings didn't fit all the way down on the axle. So, see you tomorrow, man. You see here, well, if it'll focus. I was just putting the dowel in between the plus sign of the axle and lightly tapping on that. So now that we've got these in place, put some wax on it. I believe that this might be what the actual crank attaches to. If that's the case, it makes sense why there are 3 bushings on here. Because you get cranking on this, you have a lot of twisting load, axial load, whatever you want to call it. So this now goes back here. And we're on to the next page. This page is where things really start taking form. We start over here. I can hold it straight. There we go. And we've got a little V-shaped piece, number 53, which happens to have a little wax on it. Right there. Okay, this is actually asking for some wax in a couple places. So we'll cut him out. Wax him in the appropriate spot because, yeah, he's gonna hold a gear of some type. Slingshot, letter A, triangle house, whatever you want to call it. It says inside the hole. Boy, this wax is just all kinds of crumbling now. Then I need to wax the face of the gear. just because it's going to be rubbing up against said part. There is no pretty side, there is no ugly side, so we'll get this gear meshed up. That'll hold it in place. Rub it a bit to spread that wax. Make sure it's snapped firmly in place. And it goes on the end like a so. This is still loose in here, but I'm sure it's that way for a reason. After that, we take this, put it in said hole as well. And we'll take this piece that we put on or put together earlier. Slide it over this large bearing shaft and figure out how to get this all lined up so I can assemble it. There we go. Maybe. Does not spin as freely anymore, which is fine. I mean, there's a lot more moving parts. You've got 2 gears here, 2 gears here, and that drives this. I mean, it's going through a reduction and a multiplication. Didn't even think to check, but doesn't appear that it's exactly the same, but it could be exactly the same. And they're just doing that to add more resistance to the mechanism. Because they want it so that when you stop cranking it, it stops relatively quickly. This little part flips over. Says make sure everything is very secure and snug. Then we put the top on. Oh, that looks cool. That looks super cool. You know what? Just like last time, I'm using a scrap of cherry here to hammer on the cherry so I don't mar this piece. It also spreads the load a bit so that it's a bit more uniform pressure across the entire piece. That is super cool. That looks sharp. So we flip that up. You can see the orbital gears inside the sound hole. Got your bridge. Side detail work. Tailpiece. Yeah. That looks nifty. Goes both ways very smoothly. And what's this doing now? Okay, this is exterior ribs. That's on panel 7. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to call it a night. Because I'm getting tired, and tomorrow's a busy, busy day. So gosh, okay, so I need 98, 98, 98. It basically says all of them. That is all of these pieces. Kind of a derpy looking bird type piece. Well, that one was already loose. Wood grain doesn't even match, so you might have had a problem with that piece and just replaced it with a scrap piece from another. I've kind of noticed that with some of these where there's some decent imperfections in the actual pieces, they replace them with pieces from, I guess, other kits. 'Cause I mean, it's plywood, it's natural, it's an engineered product made of natural materials. So you're going to have knots and other imperfections that, gee, that was fun. Need to get a new blade. We might be able to hammer that out. And first piece I've dropped of the whole assembly. At least the floor is relatively clean. Not that I'd go eating off of it. So derpy bird beak down, and just fits around the edges. And basically this just secures the top and the bottom together. One, two, three, four. Yeah, I don't see this thing coming apart anytime soon. Does make it look pretty cool. So it looked pretty cool without these, but I'm sure this will really stiffen up things a lot and make it a lot more secure. You still there, man? Or did you leave like the other genius from the office? That little flicker that you'll see from time to time is my AC kicking off and on. Yeah, that's fine. I'm wrapping up the stream, but I think I might bring this in tomorrow. Might not have time to show it off, but if I bring it in, I'll set it down in my office. You guys can come take a look. But here's where we are. You can see the orbital gears inside. Flywheel sticking out. You know, we've got this with the cam adjustment. Looks like string tension. Not sure what this is yet. Yeah, this thing's looking pretty darn sweet, especially for 70 bucks off Amazon. And with that, I am out of here. You guys have a good night. Thanks for watching. And I don't think I'll stream tomorrow, but I'll be streaming again soon. I'll catch you later.